everyone. Welcome once again to Brands Hatch. Here we are in the sunshine-ish. Well, it's dry, Amanda Stretton, isn't it?
I don't know which sunshine you're looking at, but I can't see any at the moment.
Let's be positive. It's going to come, I hope. Welcome to Brands Hatch. Welcome to the Ferrari Challenge UK here at this iconic circuit in Kent, where today, of course, our drivers get to stretch their legs on the Grand Prix circuit. It was the Indy circuit yesterday, Amanda, and qualifying was dramatic. The race was brilliant as well. We're expecting more of the same, I guess.
I certainly hope so. Yesterday was a wonderful way to start the season, wasn't it? We saw, as you say, some terrific racing. And it's really interesting because we've got some drivers who are new to the championship coming in. So it's been interesting to see how they're faring and how they're making their mark. One of those in particular is the car behind us, that of Tom Fleming. Now, he was dominant yesterday in both qualifying and in the race. So it's going to be interesting to see what he can actually pull out of the bag today, because free practice was also quite dominant from him.
And it certainly went Tom's way in terms of free practice. He was very, very quick indeed. And Tom is just final stages of preparation before getting in the car. Now, of course, yesterday, Amanda, he was very, very late out into qualifying, leaving it to the last minute. When it comes strategically to how these drivers deal with qualifying with their teams, and of course, with tyre use as well, you have some news on that.
That's right. Well, that's also why we're standing right in front of Tom's car, because we are making the educated guess that he's going to be late leaving the pits. We see some of the guys actually leaving at the moment. But you're right, talking about tyres. So it's cold today, and it's really important to remember that that's actually going to affect the grip that you're going to get when you're out on track. So what Tom is actually doing, he has gone out on his race tyres from yesterday. He's going to go out, do a couple of laps just to warm the car up and just to get a feel. That Grand Prix track is very different to the Indy track. You get a lot more time to actually look around you. Indy, it's busy. The next corner is on top of you almost every step of the way. So the Grand Prix track, they're going to go out, they're going to warm the car up, do a couple of laps, and then he's going to put his brand new set of Pirellis on, and that's when we expect to see those times tumbling down.
He very kindly, while you were talking, came and massaged my shoulders for me. He's such a nice man, isn't he?
He obviously thought you needed a bit of limbering up.
Interestingly, what Tom was telling me was that during the free practice session, and this is relative to what you were saying with regards to tyres, is there's a real distinction between warming the fronts up and warming the rears up. And he says trying to get them both into the right window, or both sets into the right window, front and rear, proved to be very, very difficult. So be interesting to see how this quali plays out.
Funny, yesterday, if you remember as well, when all these guys were leaving the pits, almost every one of them was squirreling just at this point here as they're turning right down into the pit lane, squirreling that back end, because of course you've got an awful lot of power going through those back wheels. And when you've got no grip whatsoever, it's very easy to light the back up. And that's just in first gear as you're leaving the pits. And it's really important when you get out on track not to be pushing too hard too soon, because just a little bit too much throttle can spin the back end round, and then that, of course, can, well, spin you off, but potentially also put you somewhere in harm's way.
Absolutely, you talk a lot of sense, and that squirreling is, that was really evident.
Looks good.
It was really evident yesterday. We like that. Sideways is brilliant, isn't it? But yes, of course, what they're trying to do, there is method in their madness, if you like, in terms of what they're doing and trying to get that heat cycle started as quickly as possible.
And the ambient today, it's actually windier. I feel that the ambient is probably a little bit lower than it was yesterday as well.
Right, we're going to get out the way, because I think, unlike yesterday, Tom is getting ready to go, and we could end up having a 488 planted to the back of our legs,
you would.
Amanda.
I'd be out the way faster.
Well, of course, yes. over 100 yards, I don't doubt that, Amanda. So, yeah, for me yesterday, let's just reflect a little bit on yesterday's race. What is it about some racing drivers that when the odds are pitched against them, that's when they come really good? I'm talking about our Coppa Shell Victor Robert Rees, who had a torrid time in qualifying and started effectively from the back of his group, and then, like a demon, came through the entire pack and took victory. Some drivers, when they have that metaphoric foot up their backside because something has gone wrong, they find something. I mean, you must,
it's a funny thing, because sometimes what can happen is it all just hangs together perfectly. It's almost impossible to put your finger on exactly what it was that actually set you off, and that's why some drivers have some strange superstitions about underwear and gloves and being touched and who straps them in and whatever, because they'll find that that is the circumstance that served them really well the last time. But you're right, when you get into that sweet spot and you're passing one car and you are just almost on the back of the car in front of you. He was making his way up the pack relentlessly yesterday, and it was an absolute pleasure to watch. Dominant in the practice session a little bit earlier on as well, but we'll see, because the guys are really starting to sort of find their way, particularly on this big track. Nobody's actually had a great deal of experience on here, but I think there's been a little bit of sim racing going on.
Do you think? Well, we're about to find all, because qualifying has got underway, and the voices that will bring us all the news from this qualifying session are standing by, and that is Jack Werrell and Adam Weller.
Great stuff. Cheers, Dave. Cheers, Amanda. Great to get some of those pictures down in the pit lane. Welcome along to round number 1 of the Ferrari Challenge UK. Of course, we're here for the second day. If you joined us yesterday, welcome back. If you missed yesterday, I do urge you after this qualifying session to go back and watch qualifying, watch the race. It was a treat, wasn't it, Adam? We were constantly on the edge of our seats, just trying to figure out who it might be up for the top of the times. But Robert Rees, for me, standout driver yesterday.
Yeah, Robert Rees and Coppa was absolutely phenomenal. A great way to start yesterday. The season. Oh, Darren Howell immediately with an error there in the back of shot. 9 degrees is the temperature out there. It's about what we had yesterday, and that means it's cold tyres coming out of the pits. And unfortunately, that's what Darren Howell has just found out.
Yeah, and sort of similar to what Robert Rees did yesterday as well. So, yeah, not exactly what he would have wanted from the early stage in his session. 27.5 minutes to go. Hopefully he can get that car struck back into life and worked back round to the pit lane. So working his way through Paddock Hill Bend. Did he just go for another gear? Potentially you can get that. You can go up a gear. The rear axle lights up. It went into a rather soft tyre wall, so hopefully that car can be driven under its own steam. The fabulous Brands Hatch Marshalls immediately on it. The red flags have come out just to bring an end to the session for now. But drivers, we need to be watching. Tom Fleming, it has to be. Yesterday, a dominant victory under the circumstances that we saw yesterday's race, but let alone this morning. We've never seen a driver into the 1 minute, or last year we didn't see a driver into the 1 minute 28. We saw Tom into the 1 minute 28 and then the 1 minute 27s this morning. A 1 minute 27 3:89, Tom's fastest lap from this morning. And I think we both mentioned it at the time that I think Tom is potentially into the 1 minute 26s in qualifying, but I think it's probably worth having a quick look back at yesterday, Adam.
Yeah, that's probably for the best as this red flag goes on. Let's take a look at some highlights.
Yeah, so yesterday the sun was out towards the afternoon. In the morning, fairly overcast, but the drivers just getting that data back to the team, getting all of the feedback, all of the seat time possible, and there were plenty of chats going on down in the pit lane. One of the first cars we saw out there was Stephen Dobson. He didn't end the day exactly how he would like, but we saw some fabulously close racing throughout the whole day. Qualifying, the sun came out just a little bit more. Drivers grew more confident. The track got more rubbered in. And it really just produced what was going to be, or set ourselves up for what was going to be a fabulous race. And pretty much from the off, we were treated to nose-to-tail action, side-by-side action, and of course Robert Rees carving his way through the order. And eventually, after only half the race, he flung himself into the lead of Coppa and eventually on to the win. But Tom Fleming starting, I think, as he means to go on, top step of the podium, start of the season. Tom Fleming, we've got to keep an eye on him, haven't we?
Yeah, he's going to have a very busy year across multiple facets of GT racing, Tom Fleming. He'll be back here in a fortnight in a GT3 spec Ferrari 296, racing on the full Grand Prix circuit, and that's why he's been relishing Sunday, his first opportunity to try the Brands Hatch GP circuit in real life. Obviously, down in the pit lane a few moments ago, we heard from Dave and Amanda. They were saying, educated guess would suggest we are going to see them, as with yesterday, trickle out of the pit lane quite slowly.
Yeah.
Today, though, it is quite different because a lot of these drivers, a lot of the new drivers, did a sizable amount of mileage here at the Brands Hatch Indy circuit. The GP, on the other hand, is for many untrodden ground. And funnily enough, Darren Howell, who I spoke to just before this qualifying session, and obviously we just saw him have his error out there on circuit, bringing this red flag out. He said to me, it's not long to try and figure this track out. It's a pretty labour-intensive day. I want to be out there as much as possible.
No, I think maybe a conversation, for lack of a better term, with his mechanic, because of course he did turn one plenty of times yesterday as well. So I've got a feeling there will be a few conversations to be had. But of course, the Grand Prix loop, it's only really been rubbered in from this morning's free practice session. They're going to have to put a bit more work into that aspect of the circuit. One of the drivers I definitely want to keep an eye on is Pranav Vangala. He's been getting quicker and quicker and quicker, more comfortable with the Ferrari 488 Challenge Evo car that he's got underneath him. Of course, he's got Jake Hill by way of a 2024 driver coach as well. The pair of those two have been working together for 10 years now, best part of a decade, and you can see Jake just peeking in to the driver's seat. A quick word with Pranav, a few words of advice, maybe just getting an update on temperatures and figuring out what exactly is going on. The clock was continuing to tick down. It has since stopped. Small amount of, I think, environmental repair to be done to the barrier, and the marshals immediately on scene. And of course, safety has to be at the top of the priority list. If one car can get there, another one very much can. Hopefully we don't see that, but Peter Hunter out of the car, he doesn't really need to say much. You can see it on his body language, can't you? Yes,
Peter will be, I'm sure, competitive in this session. He was very happy, I think, with his performance in free practice within the Coppa Shell category. The good news is that Darren Howell got his car back under his own steam. So while I imagine qualifying is not going to be something that we see Darren Howell in any further, he should be fine for the race later on. All of the cars then idling, just waiting for that opportunity to go back out on circuit. And what a piece of kit this is, the Ferrari 488 Challenge Evo. The 488 Challenge car debuted in 2016. The Challenge Evo came on song going into 2020 in Europe, 2021 on the UK market. It's a car that's now got a lot of data behind it, a lot of prior knowledge behind it from the driver coaches, from the engineers, and that means that the drivers have a lot to extract from the crews here, from the Ferrari personnel, from their driver coaches, which is hugely useful for them. Of course, the Ferrari 296 Challenge machine is on its way. It's already set to compete in the North American and European series in 2024. We'll see that car debuting 1 week from now, the North American race at COTA. And while that's going on, I believe we are going to have a little bit of a look on board, Jack, with John Dillon.
Yeah, we obviously talked you through a lap yesterday of the Indy circuit. This is how the GP circuit looks. On the run up towards turn one, place the car in the middle of the road, but not too tight in. Look for the curb, on the throttle nice and early, and you find at the compression, the car really rotates. Watch track limits on the outside before you're on the brakes, and just meander towards the apex. You almost triangulate the corner. You've got enough power to fire your way out. Watch the traction control, and then immediately watch the ABS as you dive on the brakes in towards Graham Hill Bend. Get the car straightened out for the Cooper Straight. Try not to run too wide on those track limits. 30 is a tricky corner, especially when you've got traffic on the inside. It's such a late apex. You aim for that white line in the middle of the road. That's where you want to meet the apex. Don't run too wide because the curb very quickly runs out all the way along the straight, down Pilgrim's Drop underneath the bridge. And as soon as you get to the top of that rise in towards Hawthorne, maybe down one gear, look for the apex. It's such a tricky corner. Just a quick nibble at the curb. Try not to unsettle it too much. Along the Derek Minter Straight before you arrive at Westfield Bend. Again, all of the curb and a little bit more. There's plenty of curb usage on the outside. Through Dingledale, another compression. Very tricky corner up towards Sheen Curve. You just cannot see the apex. You turn in as late as possible. Try not to hit the bollards. And then a quick run towards Stirling's. Down one gear. You can carry a lot more speed than you think because it's all cambered in. Don't run too wide because, again, the curb does run out quite quickly. Over a short rise over Clearways before you're on the brakes in towards Clark Curve. Again, another very deceptive corner. It falls away. It's off camber. You can really pick up some understeer, but the fabulous Pirelli tyres just keeping John Dillon stuck to the road before you hook the pit wall over the line, and that is a full 2.43 miles of the Brands Hatch GP loop. So with this short interlude, of course, it may mean that some of the drivers have now got a bit more time just to chat to the team, and just if they felt time pressured previously, maybe not so much now.
Yeah, quite possibly. We're out on board there with John Dillon. I'm expecting John Dillon to be very competitive here. He's got a lot of mileage here at the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit. I suspect he has the most mileage of anyone here at the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit off the top of my head. Someone who does have some experience here at this circuit as well is Pranav Van Gala. Was speaking to him just between sessions, and he said, yep, no, I have done some GP circuit before. I think he did a track day in a challenge car, actually, so he does have a little bit of relevant mileage to hand, which might be useful for him. He, of course, is also in Trofeo Pirelli. Trofeo Pirelli for some of the faster cars, or some of the faster drivers up there in the field, and Pranav, we're expecting him to be very strong as the year goes on. While this delay is going on, then, I understand we can go down to Dave and Amanda. They're in the pits as this red flag pause continues.
Thank you so much, Adam. What I wanted to do, Amanda, you know, you've done more racing than I can shake a stick at. You know, when you psych yourself up for a qualifying session, you're in the car, you go out, and you're not actually able to even deliver anything in that qualifying session because something has happened. How does that affect you as a racing driver? What will these drivers be going through right now? Because mentally they will have set themselves up for it and then bleh.
That's right, yep. You have a plan. So you've spoken, I mean, these guys in particular would have talked to their driver coach ahead, and they'll have worked out what the plan is for the session. And the problem is then, when you've got an issue like this and they're going to be rebuilding that tyre wall, you now don't know what's going to happen vis-a-vis time. You don't know how long you're going to be standing in the pits for, and whether or not this is going to have any impact on the time that you're going to have on track. So it can always be a bit challenging because suddenly the plan that you had is now out of the window. It's really important, though, that the drivers stay focused. They're going to be talking to their driver coaches, and they're going to be getting feedback. I mean, they are going to obviously restart the session, and everyone's going to get plenty of running. But it just upsets your rhythm. That's really the thing. And when you've got a plan, and you know, a lot of these guys, they're not massively experienced. So, well, you know, they like to have a plan, but as soon as it goes out the window, it can really sort of throw your balance. So it's important just to stay focused. But it was interesting, wasn't it, what I was talking about just before they went out, about the importance of warming up those tyres. I mean, I haven't spoken to the guys yet. And you know, Darren has actually just popped off just to get checked over by the medical team, but it looked like it was simply a case of his rear tyres just not being warm enough. Looked like it was just a little bit too hard, too soon, cold tyres, and they just light up and spin you round. So hopefully nothing too serious, but it just goes to show, and actually it's a lesson for everybody in just taking it steady, going easy, and not trying too hard too soon, making sure you've got everything warmed up.
Well, I'm being told that the delay is going to be relatively short because it's just the tyre barrier that has got to be rebuilt. We're looking at around about 10 minutes or so. And picking up on what you were saying, and I want to take that a stage further, if I may, what always impresses me in the Ferrari Challenge is, as a racing driver, you rely on the team behind you. Before the car had actually been extracted itself from the tyre barriers, the engineers, the teams, standing by, waiting to receive that car. The car is in the garage right now. They're working on it. I mean, it's just a wonderful effort from those. And many racing drivers, not all, but many will say, do you know what? I'm only as good as the people that I have behind me that help me. And I'm sure you're one of those, Amanda, that really, really respects the fact that the team drive you as well.
Without a shadow of a doubt, you're right. And the great thing about the Brands Hatch circuit, certainly this part of it, is you can actually see from the pits what's going on around. So we could actually see the guys in the team were actually over at the back of the paddock, and they could see Darren driving round. So immediately they knew that the car was still drivable. So already you now know what you need to do to get that car fixed and back on track straight away. So they were ready here the moment it came in, and you're right, they've already got it stripped down and they're busy preparing it at the moment.
Because their target will be
get that car out.
Not only get that car out for the race, but if there's any way they can make it out into the quali session, they will do it. They will do it.
Exactly.
Stuart is our cameraman who's working really hard, and, you know, poor thing is having to work with Amanda and Dave. That's not nice, is it? But if you just spin around, Stuart, here, because what this always surprises me as well, Amanda, as we take a little walk up here, some drivers, when there is a break like this, they choose to get out of the car and maybe take a comfort break. There are other drivers that actually stay in the car and just try and keep themselves in the zone. I think John Dillon is one of those. And it's interesting, isn't it, that you know, how drivers behave and how they react to something, this curveball that's been thrown at them.
Well, they know. I think Paul actually decided he did want a comfort break. But you're right, everybody else is staying in the car. They're staying warm as well, because the last thing they actually want to do is to sort of get cold. You know, it's windy, it's chilly out here. So they're in the car, they're ready, they're just being informed by the rest of their team what's actually going on. And just remaining in the zone, I think it's called.
Absolutely, stay in the zone, and that's precisely what John Dillon is doing. We're not going to disturb him because mentally he'll be getting himself together. Of course, they will have been informed just how long this delay is likely to be, and as we're being advised, it's not going to be a particularly long delay, so we will get back to qualifying very, very soon. I also see Andrew Morrow is in the car as well, and Johnny Kane, who is Andrew Morrow's driver coach, just having words with him right now, and he'll be just advising him on, you know, what the strategy has got to be for this qualifying, which has been truncated now because of this delay, and
updating him on what's going on as well. Yeah, and what everybody else is doing, who's in the car, who's not, and just giving the driver all the feedback that they possibly can to sort of put their minds at ease and keep them in the place they need to be, ready, focused, the moment that the lights go green and the track is rebuilt.
Well, and everyone is now getting themselves into the stage of getting back out there and on track and getting this qualifying session underway. We can see here drivers just, of course, they have not only crash helmet, but the full hands device as well, which I hope I've got this right. Amanda will soon tell me if I've got it wrong. It's head and neck support.
That's right, yes. And amazing devices, actually. I mean, and many drivers, you'll notice if you ever get the chance to look, drivers go for sort of different options. I prefer the ones that sit on my shoulders under the belt. Yes. But these days you can get these sort of braces that go sort of almost like a backpack as well. But yes, when they first came in, it was a little bit like the Halo. They were quite controversial when they first came in because they do restrict your movement side to side. But it didn't take long for drivers to realise just how important they are if you did have a large crash, you know, sort of head-on crash. So they do make a big difference as well, but it's important that they get fitted correctly because otherwise they can also really hurt when you're strapped in. And when you're strapped in the car, you cannot move. The only thing you can move is your hands. Your whole body really should be locked in place. So if your hands device is caught and you know, you've got a bit of a twisted strap going on, it can be really off-putting.
Okay, so we're looking at Gary Redman, who, of course, on his return to the Ferrari Challenge yesterday.
Great helmet design, isn't it?
Yeah, great helmet design. Nice. Lovely car design as well. Gary, of course, on the podium. We're getting ready for this qualifying session to get back started, and we can hear the beautiful sound of those Ferrari engines roaring to life as Andrew Morrow escapes behind us. Probably time that we should go back to Jack and Adam to get this qualifying session perhaps underway once again, Japs.
Thank you both. Yeah, great to just get a quick look down in the pit lane as to what goes on and the amount of equipment and the amount of work that really goes into getting these cars back out on circuit. And more importantly, yeah, that safety aspect. The reason for the short delay was just to get the circuit back safe. And as was mentioned by Amanda, that hands device is so crucial, isn't it, Adam?
It is, yes. Funny enough, while they were just talking about the hands device down in the pits, Amanda and Dave got me thinking of Jim Downing, the kind of father of the hands device product, a former IMSA sports car racer out in the US. He's, I think, getting on 80 years old now. He's still racing historic prototypes in 2024 at Road Atlanta, no less, where the Ferrari Challenge North America will be in the later parts of their season. For now, though, we focus on Ferrari Challenge UK, and in about 15 seconds time a batch of 3.9 litre V8s will fire into life once again.
Yep, they It will indeed. Just working their way down towards pit exit, waiting for that light to flick green. As soon as it does so, we will be able to go racing. We look towards the bottom left-hand side of your screen if you are watching on the live stream. And yep, there goes the green flag, there goes the green light, and we can get qualifying back underway. The first car that will take to the circuit is Hymandra Pillai. He's obviously leading the field. Then, immediately after, is Tom Fleming. Last year's pole time went the way of Graham Dezil with a 1 minute 29.454. The fastest returning driver from last season was Andrew Morrow. He posted a 1 minute 30.047. He was very, very close, just a bit quicker than that in free practice. But of course, in qualifying, you can push just that little bit harder. You can get those few banker times on the board. Once the Pirelli tyres are up to temperature, you can just get those representative times on there, and then you think, right, okay, let's really go for it now. And I think Tom Fleming, that's what he's doing, immediately up to not quite racing speed, but definitely quicker than everybody else, nice and early. He wants that gap, but that clean track is going to be so crucial.
Yeah, and again, everybody wants every possible piece of muscle memory data before we go racing here at the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit. Those drivers who are new to this track, it's critical that they work this place out, and it is quite the challenge, of course, around this facility. So many fast corners, particularly in that second sector, and we were remarking about that earlier on, the run from the exit of Surtees up until Sheen Curve. All, of course, right-hand bends, very left-hand dominant, incidentally, as well. I suspect the tyre wear across the race distance will be very much left-hand dominant. But it's a section of circuit, the Grand Prix loop, that requires absolute commitment from the drivers, and you can't commit if you don't know where you're going.
No, exactly, and it's what I find is a very unique challenge at Brands Hatch, and one of the reasons why I love it so much is purely if you make just a small mistake in towards Hawthorns, that doesn't just affect that corner, it affects the Derek Minter straight because you're not going as quick. Naturally, you're slightly slower through Westfield, then you're immediately downhill, so you're a few miles an hour slower by the time you arrive at Sheen, so you've got to be later on the brakes at Stirling's. And then if you're later on the brakes and you outbrake yourself, that then affects the rest of the lap. So one small mistake at Brands Hatch can be so costly. We're starting to see the cars work their way over the line. Tom Fleming was the first to go onto his flying lap, already coming out of Graham Hill Bend at a rapid rate of knots. He's pushing hard very, very early, but it's nice to see he's got that confidence in the car, and Ferrari have given him a fabulous chassis, as are all of them. And of course, AF Course preparing all of these cars. It seems like they know what they're doing, to the point Tom Fleming is so comfortable in these cars, he can get straight on it straight away.
Yeah, about 6 or 7 tenths off his ultimate pace through Sector 1, but given it's his first flying lap, that is very impressive. He's got heat into the tyres quite quickly then. As Amanda Stretton alluded to down in the pit lane, while the ambient temperature actually isn't that different, but the wind is. There's a lot more wind today. It feels a lot colder out there on the circuit, and you've got that pairing of, again, not a particularly warm day and increased winds around the circuit as well. That's going to be very tricky, and we've seen Tom Fleming there on 2 consecutive corners really pushing the limits.
Yeah, he's just showing us the wind, because if he can flick some dust into the air, we can see how the wind is affecting it. Tom Fleming pushing so hard, pushing the limits as well. Here he comes towards the line. The first representative time of qualifying will be posted by Tom Fleming immediately into the 1 minute 29s, a 1 minute 29.750 from Tom Fleming. Just a bit of a wobble at the apex through Paddock Hill Bend, but traffic may slowly start to become an issue on this lap as he's slowly starting to close up onto Peter Hunter. Peter Hunter does what he can to peel his way out the way. Full commitment up the inside from Tom Fleming. We've just seen Andrew Morrow over the line for his first lap time, a 1 minute 33.056. Still plenty more to come from Andrew Morrow. Same goes the way of car number 29, that being Pranav Vangala, with a 133.586. Or 135.586, pardon me, for Pranav. There's still plenty more time to come, but there's 2 aspects of this qualifying session. There's pole overall, and usually for Trofeo Pirelli, but then there's also pole in Coppa Shell and how everybody else will fall thereafter. But again, following on from yesterday, all eyes, I think, on Robert Rees.
Yeah, Robert Rees certainly marking himself out as a favourite in Coppa Shell with his performance from the rear of Coppa Shell to the top step of the podium on Saturday at the Brands Hatch Indy circuit. But some challenges emerging certainly as well. Peter Hunter looked pretty quick yesterday this morning in free practice, actually. Looked very quick here around the GP circuit. There is the 19 car. That's Pirelli trying to get some heat into his tyres. He, interestingly, is kind of taking a couple of more laps. I've noticed, I think he's done at least 2 laps now, just coasting, trying to get heat into everything before he starts to push. So differing approaches there. That's, of course, is one of the entries from Ferrari Colchester. And that is an element, of course, of the Ferrari Challenge broadly, but in Ferrari Challenge UK specifically as well. It is always worth mentioning we do have the Coppa Shell for some of the less experienced drivers, some of the more senior drivers, then Trofeo Pirelli, of course, for some of the fastest Ferrari Challenge drivers in the country. Then, of course, there is the Coppa Dealer as well. The reigning champions in Coppa Dealer are HR Owen, and it is HR Owen represented by Tom Fleming this weekend. Of course, Fleming, the world champion in Ferrari Challenge at the moment after taking the Trofeo Pirelli win at Finale Mondiale last year. If you're familiar with Ferrari Challenge, you remember that name. That's why he was one of the leading forces last year, not just in Ferrari Challenge Europe, but at the big one, Finale Mondiale.
Yeah, definitely not just a star of today, a star of the future is Tom Fleming. John Dillon desperate to work his way through the field and get up into some clean air. Mike Dewhurst, the driver, he was throwing his car up the inside of it. And again, Mike Dewhurst for me is definitely a driver we need to watch in Coppa Shell. But John Dillon this morning showcased some fabulous pace in free practice. And again, I still think a lot more to come from John Dillon as he works his way up towards Druids. We have seen Tom Fleming back over the line. He's gone quicker still with a 1 minute 29.699. This lap he was slightly slower through sector 1 and sector 3, but sector 2 an overall best, and then an overall fastest lap, a 1 minute 29.923. He's just extending that provisional pole margin by almost 3/4 of a second over Andrew Morrow. 20 minutes still to go, a lot can change.
Yeah, a lot will change, I'm sure, especially as we go into the mid part of the session and the second runs in the session as well. Big change in Coppa Shell. Up to 4th overall goes Hunter. That is a very impressive lap time from him. Pranav Vangala also just going faster at 1:31.331 for him. Just 700ths off this man, John Dillon, who we're looking at. But it is Peter Hunter at the moment leading in Coppa Shell. And I tell you what, watching John Dillon around this circuit, I don't know if you saw it as well, Jack, but coming out of Druids Bend, he actually did a 4-wheel drift out of the corner. Looked like a 70s Formula 1 car.
Yeah, just in desperation, I think, to put the power through the ground. The Pirelli P0s that he's got on that car, that everybody has, a fabulous Pirelli tyre, just trying to aid in that effort to get the power down as soon as possible. We have seen a massive climb up the order from Gilbert Yates. The first representative time he has done, a 1 minute 30.894. That leaves him provisional P3 for now. John Dillon over the line. He improves his time, but not his position. 3/4 of a second away from Gilbert Yates. You called it in practice. Gilbert Yates, maybe yesterday, just couldn't quite get that pace that he wanted to extract. But today, definitely one to watch because he has experience on the GP loop. He has experience in GT machinery. He's proving that today already, isn't he?
Yeah, he's been. I spoke to him actually between free practice and quali, and he did say, you know what, there's a differing feel from this car compared to some of the stuff I've driven before. I'm still trying to get my head around it, but I think as he does so, as we approach tracks that he's very familiar with, we will see more and more from him. Now, while I was talking about that, you were basically laughing there, Jack, at just the sheer pace of Tom Fleming.
Tom Fleming, the thing is, I can look at that now, a 1 minute 29.227, they're now provisional pole time, and it's almost securing that for him now, 1.1 seconds quicker than Andrew Morrow. Andrew is still out there. He's just worked his way onto another lap. He's just working his way along the Cooper Straight. We may see an improvement from him this time. We wait for him to break the beam at the end of Sector 1. What can he do? A 28.7 from him last time, a 28.6 through Sector 1. So he is just chipping away at that time. We have seen Pranav Vangala into the pit lane as well. Looking down, they're just checking pressures. Just a quick look in the air vents, which usually is a telltale sign. He's pushed the limit a little bit too much, wandered through some grass, and the mechanics are just making sure everything is still all okay with that car. But Tom Fleming, what can he not do? Because he just keeps going quicker and quicker and quicker and extracting more and more time. An overall fastest Sector 2 on this lap. He's just running his way towards the line now. He's slowly closing up onto the tail end of Mike Dewhurst. Over the line goes Tom Fleming. Was it quicker once again? Of course it was. A 1 minute 29.124 for Tom Fleming. 1.2 seconds quicker than Andrew Morrow. But for me, I still think Gilbert Yates minutes. He's gone personal fastest through Sector 1. There's still a bit more to come. The top 4 in Trofeo Pirelli, or in theory from 2nd to 4th in Trofeo Pirelli, those 3 drivers, Andrew Morrow, John Dillon and Gilbert Yates, it's going to be a close fight.
Definitely will be. We were looking just previously at the 74 car. Of course, that is Stephen Dobson. And if you're watching our race yesterday, you'll know that the race ended under safety car, under checkered flag, after Stephen Dobson had a bit of a moment down at Paddock Hill Bend. And we saw him over the free practice session this morning, building confidence. Unfortunately, Pirelli maybe a bit overconfident there down at Westfield. He's found himself on the grass. He may have even gone through the gravel, but he's just about gotten it through the gravel onto the grass, which means he can get back out onto the tarmac.
Yeah, so it's great to see that that car is back out onto the circuit, and he will be able to rumble his way back round to the pit lane. And we just look towards pit entry. Robert Rees has worked his way into the pit lane. He is currently sat 7th overall and leading Coppa Shell. However, a bit has changed in terms of the timing. Gilbert Yates, we said keep an eye on him, a 1 minute 30.259. That puts him 700ths clear of Andrew Morrow, and in provisional 2nd place on the provisional front row of the grid as well for Gilbert Yates. So exactly what he wants to start his day off with. 16.5 minutes of the session still to go, so plenty of time for improvement. Over the line goes Tom Fleming, no improvement that time. Of course, may have been slightly hindered from yellow flags. But Robert Rees, provisional pole sitter in Coppa Shell. Tom Fleming, provisional pole sitter in Trofeo Pirelli. I still think with 16 minutes to go, it's all going to change again.
It absolutely will. Those second runs, you will see a little bit more pace unlocked, I'm sure, from a lot of these cars. Of course, everybody's still trying to find their footing around the circuit. The temperatures will be slowly going up around the track, of course, track temp. The circuit's getting more and more rubbered in as well. Of course, we didn't run the GP loop yesterday. A bit of a tag there to one of the bollards there from the driver of the 11 car. That was Yates going through Sheen Curve. And you just pointed out again, Fleming on a fast one, 28.2. He got into the 27s in free practice, we have to remember, in that first sector.
What's more impressive, this is a used set of tyres.
Yeah.
We heard from Amanda Stretton down in the pit lane, and of course Dave Richardson, just saying that he is on a used set of tyres. They've already been through that heat cycle, which for a brief moment, the Pirelli tyres can extract just that bit more pace. They can give the driver that extra bit of feel that they require to push harder. Of course, if he puts on a fresh set of Pirelli tyres, he's got to put them through a heat cycle. He's got to get them up to temperature and almost take away the shine from the surface and then go back out and attack. But Tom Fleming towards the line. He's clearly comfortable enough to finish the lap, and he doesn't need to dive into the pit lane. Over the line, a 1:29.124 to beat, a 1:29.142. Nice and consistent, but no improvement.
That's very, very impressive, though, to be within 200ths of his lap time there across the line on that occasion. That's the thing. If you can set a heroic lap once, that's great for qualifying. But if you can do it time after time after time, that sets you apart from the crowd more often than not in motor racing. We just saw there Yates in the pit lane, 4th at the moment. This is Gary Redman. We're yet to mention him in this session. Currently 3rd in Coppa Shell, making his return to the Ferrari Challenge UK after taking part in the 2019 season. Took a bit of a break as well, had some health concerns to attend with, as he shared with us yesterday on the broadcast. Great to have him back and racing in the Ferrari Challenge, the 488 Challenge Evo. His first racing experience with the Evo spec car, because in 2019 we were running the original 488 Challenge machine with its initial aero kit, which I think was about 30% down on what the Evo spec can achieve out there. And I'm sure that step up has been noticeable for him. Gary Redman having a very strong result as well yesterday on the podium on his return.
Yeah, exactly what he would want. That's going to be a massive confidence booster for not only the rest of this weekend, but for the rest of the season as well. Going rather slowly again, just trying to work some temperature into the Pirelli tyres and into the brakes is Mike Dewhurst. So he is on his outlap, and we may see him start to push a bit harder with just over 13 minutes of this session still to go. Tom Fleming has now opted to dive into the pit lane, having completed the most laps out of absolutely everybody. 10 laps completed by Tom Fleming at the moment. So we have a look down the pit lane, and yes, new tyres coming out for Tom Fleming's car, so expect more time to be extracted from Tom's provisional pole time. Robert Rees just working his way through Sheen Curve and up towards Stirling's. And again, Stirling's is one of those corners where when you get it right, it feels so rewarding, because you're on the brakes, down a gear, turn in, and you almost feel the corner hugging you into the apex because of that camber mid-corner. You can really fire your way on towards clearways. And if you get that right, chances are you will start the next lap in the best possible position. Just make sure you slow it down for Paddock Hill Bend.
Yeah, there's a fine arts carrying speed through that corner without straying wide on the exit, isn't there? On the rare occasions I get it right on the sim, there is a bit of a smile on my face. Robert Rees then still at the top in Coppa Shell at the moment on a 134.105. Only a 10th and 300ths clear of Peter Hunter at the moment. That's certainly not comfortable with Hunter's pace that we saw in free practice earlier on. It was, of course, Robert Rees who was fastest in Coppa Shell earlier this morning.
Yeah, back out onto circuit, albeit maybe slightly more leery than what he would like, is Tom Fleming, provisional pole sitter. He put his foot to the floor and the car was wiggling left and right just on those fresh tyres, but trying to surge some temperature into his Pirellis. Pranav Vangala working his way up towards Sheen Curve, not really taking too many liberties with the curve. We see some drivers, I think it was Gilbert Yates that was getting a bit greedy on those curves, but Pranav Vangala just wanting to get out there and ensure he can keep chipping away at those at the times that he's previously set. A 1 minute 31.331 his current best. I don't think this lap will be challenging that one, but it's been very clean and very concise through the final corner. And again, whilst you might think, oh, I've not gone quicker that lap, it's not an improvement. What it is, it's another lap under your belt. It's another 1 minute and 30 seconds of seat time that could become so valuable later on.
Yeah, absolutely. There is no replacement for practical experience in most facets of life, but particularly when it comes to race car driving. Pillai there just getting dropped off the jacks. He will be back underway shortly after his little excursion off on the circuit, and he'll try and get a good time in. Already, to be fair, a fairly competitive lap. A 32.436 is his best, 6th overall at the rear of the Trofeo Pirelli order, but still a fairly competitive lap time. And Pillai has impressed me, as has Van Gala as well. Both of our kind of new racers that have been put into Trofeo Pirelli have impressed me immensely.
Gilbert Yates just onto another flying lap. We've also had over the line John Dillon, so two drivers that we need to keep an eye on overall and in Trofeo Pirelli have gone on to another flying lap. Robert Rees is back out there and just trying to chip away at his time. At the moment, he is still the provisional pole sitter in Coppa Shell. However, he's not got too much of a buffer, only 0.125 of a second to Peter Hunter, and that's not the biggest margin in the world, so he's got a bit of work to do if he wants to secure that just a bit more. We've had a spin up at Druids Corner that looks like the grey and orange machine of Gary Redman. Of course, he's been in the pit lane previous and just got back out there, maybe just didn't quite have the temperature he believed he had in those Pirelli P0s. He's got back going again, found a gear, and he can get back underway.
Got that car back and sorted fairly quickly. There's John Dillon then, after doing a bit of a flying-ish lap. He's now, I think, still trying to get some heat into those tyres. John Dillon, who's been racing here at the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit in Ferraris going back at least 13 years. I can remember him racing at a GT3 spec Ferrari here back in 2011. He's got a lot of mileage under the belt around this facility, and of course a lot of experience in Ferrari Challenge, not just in the UK Championship, also in Europe as well. John Dillon is someone you can never rule out when he's at the wheel of a Ferrari GT, be it a Challenge car or a GT3 machine or a GTE car, because he's done that too.
I was just looking as well, Tom Fleming sector 1 times 34.5 seconds, not quite what you'd expect from Tom Fleming, but again, that could have just been trying to find a little bit of clear track to work his way into. Andrew Morrow, however, he has found that clear track, and he's making it work for him. His personal fastest lap of the session, a 1 minute 30.259. That puts him 1.1 seconds away from the pole sitter Tom Fleming at the moment. We do have some close margins, however. John Dillon is only just under 0.4 of a second away from Andrew Morrow. Gilbert Yates, a 1/4 of a second away from the tail of John Dillon. Pranav Vangala, 0.4 away from the tail of Gilbert Yates. It really is close. Like I said, that 2nd to 4th, 2nd to 5th in Trofeo Pirelli and overall, it's going to be very, very close indeed. John Dillon, he thought, well, Gilbert Yates, you've done half the job. Let me finish it for you, and runs over the bollard.
fastest first sector of anybody from Andrew Morrow through the first sector. Our defending Ferrari Challenge UK champion is on it. So is this man, John Dillon. 2 personal best sectors so far on this lap. So let's follow this lap until its conclusion and see what John Dillon can do. His best so far is a 1:30.632, and that's a 1:29.806 from John Dillon. Andrew Morrow, meanwhile, approaching the last 2 corners now. He is currently with 2 purple sectors. He could be on for a pole lap here, just behind this car, the 11 of Yates. Here is Morrow.
He's going so quick indeed on this lap. Overall fastest sector 1, overall fastest sector 2, breaks the beam at the start-finish line. What can Andrew Morrow do? Onto provisional pole position with a 1:28.956. However, almost responding was Gilbert Yates with the overall fastest sector 3. That's put him up a place. But Andrew Morrow up 3 places. Mike Dewhurst has taken provisional pole in Coppa Shell, so as soon as we come out of the halfway point in the session, drivers returning to the circuit after picking up a new set of tyres, Mike Dewhurst takes provisional pole in Coppa Shell. Andrew Morrow has put himself on provisional pole in Trofeo Pirelli. It's all changing, and Andrew Morrow, he's pushing harder again. Another overall fastest sector 1.
Get ready for the shuffle. This is going to change a lot over the next 6 minutes and 40 seconds. Morrow there going a bit wide out of Surtees. I think he'll have cost himself a couple of tenths there on the long run towards Hawthorns and down Hawthorn Hill. Morrow then top of the timing screens with that 1:28.956, the first 28 that we've seen from anyone besides Tom Fleming today here at the Brands Hatch GP circuit. Fleming currently on a flying lap, so we'll see how that one pans out. He's just going through the first sector now. Yates is quick again, a personal best first sector, and then the fastest second sector of anybody, the 11 car just coming through the final turn now. Here is Yates. Let's see what kind of time he can put in as he comes out of the Clark curve and clearways. We look at the timing screen with bated breath.
We do indeed. So Gilbert Yates over the line. What can he do? Onto provisional pole position. Andrew Morrow, can he respond and work his way back onto provisional pole? No, not this time. So Gilbert Yates provisional pole position with a 1:28.781, a personal fastest sector 1, an overall fastest sector 2 and 3. However, Tom Fleming, he is still out there. He's on that fastest lap, like you said, Adam, and he's set the overall fastest sector 1. Can he follow the same pattern with sector 2 and 3? Here comes Tom Fleming. He's just working his way along the Derek Minter straight.
Yes, but I think he might have some traffic to contend with on this lap. I think, yes, there you see it. Redman just ahead of him. I did think his track position meant he might find a couple of cars during the lap, and that's exactly what's happened. That's the other factor, of course. You can be as fast as you like through sector 1, but you never know what waits around the corner. On that occasion, Fleming has lost out a bit, but not everything. He was still fairly quick in sector 2. Let's see what this time is.
Over the line goes Tom Fleming. He remains as he is, no improvement this time, but more importantly for him, he has 0 traffic up the road to contend with by the time he approaches. I'm just looking further up. The first car he will meet will be Hamandra Pillai, who I think is just on an installation lap, so he should see that Tom Fleming is approaching very, very quickly and just peel his way out of the racing line. John Dillon over the line. Does he improve that time through? No, he set a personal fastest sector 1, however. Tom Fleming not quite exactly where he wants to be for sector 1. Gilbert Yates, he's still pushing hard. He gave away a lot in sector 2, potentially with traffic. Over the line he will go with a 1:31.198, not touching his 1:28.781 that we saw earlier on. But at the moment, I'm going to have to go back on what I said earlier. I said it would be second to third. At the moment, it's first to fifth in Trofeo Pirelli. 1.7 seconds separates first to fifth, which doesn't sound like much. But when you look at it in terms of a racing perspective, that's 5 cars within 2 seconds. That's absolutely nothing.
That is very impressive indeed, and equally impressed that Robert Rees has pulled into the pit lane. 6th overall at the moment, Coppa Shell leader, and he's just going to watch from the sidelines. Can Dewhurst, Hunter, Dobson or Redman try and go quicker over the next 3 minutes and 35 seconds? Tom Fleming certainly quick through the middle sector. We've been following on this lap. Here he comes across the line. Yeah,
towards the line he will come, and as he breaks the beam, does he work his way up onto provisional pole? Does he ever, with a 1:27.873. Provisional pole by 9/10 of a second, and he still gave away a bit of time in sector 1. He will get a bit of traffic on this lap if he continues on. The car he will meet will be Stephen Dobson, but Tom Fleming, with 3 minutes and 5 seconds still to go, I've got a feeling he might push just that little bit more. He wants the overall fastest Sector 1 once again, and if he can piece purple sectors together, he'll be going quicker. Go on.
He just backed out of it there, dropped out after Sector 1, so I think this may actually end up being an in-lap. But just wanted to push, I think, through that first sector, almost for pride, just to say, look, I can go really quick through the first sector. Oh, and Pirelli with a big moment there coming out of Surtees. That is a hefty impact for the Malaysian racer.
Yeah, it is indeed not quite the situation that we would like. So naturally, the red flags do come out. We've also had car number 22 have an off-track excursion. That's Gary Redman. And whereabouts is that? That's at Surtees, just heading on towards the straight towards Pilgrim's Drop. Potentially, with those two cars being in a similar place, something may have happened. But out of the car clambers Gilbert Yates. I'd imagine he'll be pretty happy with his qualifying performance as he just exits the car and goes back in towards his garage.
Yeah, that red flag will more than likely conclude the session then. You see the 22 car at Surtees then on the exit of the corner. Looked like he just took too much on entry there, if anything, if there wasn't anything going on between himself and Hemandra Pillai there. An unfortunate end to the session, but a very impressive session it was overall. We get a look back now. Pillai just bouncing across the grass. Easy to do out of Surtees to go wide there. One of the, much like Sterling's, very easy to try and carry the speed and go a bridge too far. That's exactly what we saw there out of Hemandra Pillai, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think that's just, as you approach the exit, you're almost going over the crest, so you can't rely on that mechanical grip. It does fall away quite suddenly, and yeah, it's very easy. Drivers of all talents and of all aspects in their motorsport career get caught out, including myself, and a lot of the time in the sim as well. But out of the car, it's brilliant to see Hemandra Pillai chatting with the marshal, I'm sure. So AF Course will do their fabulous work as ever to ensure that that car is prepared and in the best possible position for later on this afternoon. But Tom Fleming, he did exactly what he needed to do at exactly the right time, because we're just hearing the session will not restart. A 1:27.873, he's more than safe, 9/10 clear.
He's very happy that he didn't have any traffic on that last flying lap. If he had to do one more, he wouldn't have reached the flag in time to try and take that pole, but he has done it by almost the same margin as yesterday, 9/10 clear of Yates. But that's actually very interesting, isn't it? Double the length of this circuit, and yet still only 9/10 clear. I get the feeling again that this circuit is unique, and as challenging as it is, Fleming, as fast as he is, I think one of the best young GT drivers in the world right now, I don't think he's going to have it all his own way today in the race.
No, and whilst he is starting, or will be starting on the inside of the front row, what that means is you've almost got a tighter line on the run in towards Paddock Hill Bend. So if Gilbert Yates, as you say, he's got plenty of experience around here, he might know a few tricks that he can potentially apply to his driving style for the race later on. And looking at the grid already, I think we're going to be in for one brilliant race.
Absolutely, and across both classes as well. Robert Rees, of course, 6th overall, ahead of one of the Trofeo Pirelli drivers as well for Robert Rees. That's always a nice little feather in the cap for anyone in Coppa to be interloping among the Trofeo Pirelli drivers. But more importantly, only 4/10 clear of Dewhurst, who managed to get up to second there towards the end of the session in Coppa Shell. And then, of course, there is the wild card, not just on grid walks, but also on the circuit, that being Peter Hunter.
Absolutely, but here are the results from qualifying. Tom Fleming takes pole position with a 1:27.873. Gilbert Yates will line up alongside on the outside of the first row of the grid. Andrew Morrow will line up in 3rd place, a full second away from Tom Fleming in qualifying. John Dillon will finish the session in 4th. 5th was Pranav Vangala, and pole position for Coppa Shell goes the way of Robert Rees. And as you say, just working his way in towards the Trofeo Pirelli drivers ahead of Hemandra Pillai, 4.5 seconds back. Then it's Mike Dewhurst that finishes the session in 8th place, Peter Hunter in 9th, and Gary Redman rounds out your top 10 qualifiers. And we should also see Stephen Dobson, who finished the session in 11th, and Darren Howell didn't quite get exactly what he wanted from qualifying, but Dave Richardson is down in the pit lane. Down to you.
Thank you very much. Going to grab Tom Fleming, hot out of the car. And Tom, many congratulations. Another pole position. Therefore, you are presented with the Rotiform Pole Position Award, which will add to, may I say, which must be a very bent mantelpiece in your house with all the trophies and awards that you have. It's bending under the weight of them. Were you playing with us in that qualifying session? Because towards the end, suddenly the Fleming name appeared not on P1. Were you just having a go with us?
I just fancied, spicing things up for the viewers. But no, to be honest, it was actually a really difficult qualifying session. In comparison to this morning, the track's developed quite a lot. There's a lot more gravel, and the GP layout where we go, instead of the Indy circuit, go down the back through the forest, has become a lot trickier because there's been gravel brought onto the track from other guys going off. So it wasn't an easy qualifying session. I got blocked multiple times, but eventually we got a lap in at the end. That was good enough. I wasn't quite satisfied with it. Obviously, I want to go as fast as I possibly can, but we did the job, and that's all we can do, really.
What was really interesting is I was chatting to you just before you went out in qualifying, and you were saying, actually, Dave, what's really curious about this is the rate of temperature increase between front and rear of the car, i.e. front tyres are warming up quicker than the rear tyres. It's trying to get that combination right. So, you have to work hard at getting it right, Tom.
You can't always get it right, and that's the thing. That's the I don't know. I appreciate it quite a lot when you put a really good lap together. It's really nice. But in that qualifying session there, I put in the 27.8 that I did when the fronts weren't up to temperature, and then I was coming purple out of the out of turn 2, the hairpin, and then as soon as I come out of turn 3, the rears are gone, and it's just like you can't put it all together because these cars are. It's such a fine margin with these cars, but when you get it right, it's the most rewarding thing. But this is my first laps driving the GP layout, and I got to say, I absolutely love it. I could use more colourful language, but I won't. But my words, it's an awesome circuit, and to drive an equally awesome car around here is just amazing. The general consensus in the paddock is this track is mega.
Many congratulations, Tom. And right now, I'm delighted to say you are the Trofeo Pirelli Rotiform Pole Position Award winner once again. And let's go to Amanda Stratton now. In the meet.
Apologies for that, for whetting your appetite, thinking that you were going to hear from the Coppa Shell pole sitter, Robert Rees. We had a small technical problem, but Robert, I can now talk to you and everybody can hear us. So first of all, may we present you with your pole position trophy for the second time this weekend. Starting off as you mean to go on, obviously.
I'm hoping to, and that's what we're here for. So I'm hoping to have some very, very good racing, and we're in a good position to start that.
Now listen, tell me what it was like out there, because of course there was lots of cars going off, there was lots of gravel on the track as well, and it was a new circuit for all of you.
Correct. So we had to manage that process quite well, but I do think we did that okay.
Well, listen, many congratulations. I know it's getting cold. You were getting a bit chilly waiting for us. The sweat sort of, it cools down quite quickly in your overalls, doesn't it?
It does indeed, and it turns into a cold sweat at that point, so thank you.
Right, you go off, you get warm, and I think we can safely say that qualifying is certainly hotting up to a very exciting race a little bit later on. So be sure to join us for round 2 here from the long circuit, the Grand Prix track at Brands Hatch.